welcome back to the final episode in our boss fight breakdown series. Well, the final episode in the main story quest at least, as there may be a couple more boss fights that we'll come back around and revisit. That being said, we want to jump right into the action today, so real quick before we do, check to see if you are subscribed to the channel. If you're not, take a moment to do so, as that subscription is free and easy and there is videos coming to you on a daily basis. And feel free to leave a like on today's video if you found this episode particularly helpful. So without further ado, let's jump into the boss fight. And the first fight of today's video, and the second to last boss fight of the main story quest, is against the Infinity Gauntlet Thanos himself. Now, Thanos has a couple of different attacks that he throws out, and they can be a little bit tricky. But as you learn your way around them, you'll actually be able to get through this with relative ease, as you just mainly need to be aware of not getting caught in the line of fire, as he has very high damaging output attacks. But we'll break down the different attacks that he throws out as we progress through. Now, one of the attacks that he throws out with relative frequency is the attack where he couples the Power Stone along with the Time Stone and will bring meteorites crashing down, but you just need to keep a pendant finger on your combat roll, as that's going to be your best out on that attack. He will also occasionally dash around the arena very quickly, but it has a long startup time, and it gives you a very clear direction as to where he will be releasing that attack. So you do have time to prepare for it. One of the more difficult attacks that he has is actually the one that you just saw, where he creates an orb using the Space Stone that will kind of suck you in towards the middle, while using the Reality Stone to summon some spikes up from the ground underneath you. And though that can be a bit difficult to deal with, you can roll around the effect of the Space Stone, as well as the effect of these reality spikes that come around. Now, that's not the only attack that you see the spikes for, as you can see the spikes occasionally as they crop up underneath your feet. And again, the best strategy to deal with those is you will want to go ahead and roll around them as they are being unleashed. That's a similar tactic that you'll want to see anytime he jumps up into the air, because he will slam back down and create massive amounts of damage as he does so. And he really just rinse and repeats a lot of the different attacks that he has. This attack, with the prism, will kind of trap you in place and leave you very vulnerable to his attacks, but he also has some attacks that he uses that will cause you to become staggered out a little bit, as well as one of his standard abilities as a playable character that you'll see him unleash, where he will grapple into you and then punch you across the arena. As long as it's not the character that you're actively controlling, you're not going to receive terrifying amounts of damage that you need to be aware of. Now, he does have some Mind Stone homing orbs that pop in, will occasionally launch out a laser-based attack from his face, and those can be a little bit of a nuisance to have to deal with, but you do get a feel for the different attacks that he throws out after a little bit of practice and exposure to this fight. Now, the biggest strategy that I've found that serves to be beneficial is you do want to switch off of any of your team members that are sitting low on health wherever possible, because again, a good strategy to employ is that you take more damage as the character that you're controlling, especially if you're not blocking a given attack, than what your teammates would. And your other teammates will prioritize reviving up your fallen members of your squad. So it's not worth your time going out of your way to revive them, where that's something that will be done basically on its own if you just kind of let it be. Now, the Soul Stone attack that he throws out will kind of siphon back some health or stagger to him, but it's a very finite area of attack that you really shouldn't be too concerned about. Some of the more annoying attacks that he throws out are in particular these reality spikes that he summons up from the ground underneath you, as well as using the Space Stone to kind of conjure his way or teleport around the battle arena where he is. But with 1 or 2 final uses of our extreme attacks here, we've got the entire fight finished out, and we can move on to the final boss of the main story quest, which is not only Thane, but it's Thane in the Infinity Armor with the Infinity Gauntlet, which makes this a little bit of a drawn-out fight. Now, initially, he's just got the benefits of the Infinity Armor that you need to keep track of, which is honestly a similar power set to what we saw in the fight against Thanos, with a couple of notable differences. Mainly, the energy beam attack that he has is not emanated straight out in front of him, but it rather comes from the gauntlet itself, and he will swing that in a wide arc out in front of him as he uses it. But he will also periodically throughout this fight draw in different benefits from the Infinity Stones themselves. And most importantly, or most notably, I guess I should say, is Thane has the most amount of phases out of any boss fight that we have looked at thus far. And this is where we move from stage 1 to stage 2, and he activates a large crystal that syncs up with the Space Stone, which adds a new layer of complexity to this fight. And ultimately, you just need to keep your eye on the different attacks that he throws out. The biggest quirk with this stone being thrown into the mix is there are some puddles of Space Stone energy that show up on the ground, and if you step in them, you will be teleported to Thane's side, which is a bit annoying because Thane is one of the hardest hitting bosses in the game. Now, in this third phase that you trigger into, he gains the added benefit of the Time Stone with the large time crystal that crashes in. And this is noted by the green aspect that encompasses the ground, as well as the green aura that emanates from Thane himself. But he starts gaining a couple of attacks similar to what we've seen Thanos using in his own boss fight as we progress through this phase into the next one. Now, phase 4 is the next one that we have activating here in just a moment. And that is important because it incorporates the use of the Reality Stone into the fight, which this will summon 3 clones of Thane in his Infinity Armor, which are weaker, similar to what we saw in the Loki fight, but still a nuisance nonetheless, as you will notice that there are a lot more particle effects from the different stone effects coming around. And this does not let up. Each of these effects, as soon as they come into effect, they continue to show up throughout the remainder of the fight. And with a couple of well-placed attacks here, we are good to move in to the 5th phase, and that 5th phase is what incorporates the Power Stone into this fight. You'll notice that we have a whole new wave of Thane clones that have shown up to combat against, and you'll also notice that there are some larger meteorites that start making their way onto the battlefield as well. And that is what really kind of makes this fight even more interesting, because the meteorites take up most of the arena that we're fighting in. It's also at this phase that he gains access to his Amber, which is a move that we're familiar that he has just from the basic storyline. And if you get caught in that, you are in for a really bad time, because there's really not a whole lot you can do. You need to mash your way out of that, and you're almost certain to take damage. But phase number 6 is what incorporates the Mind Stone into the fight, and the biggest difference here is there is a large area of effect that comes out on the ground, and if you spend too much time in it, you are going to have your controls inverted, as that is a common theme among the Mind Stone itself. But you can, deal with that as one normally would by rolling around from it or taking your business elsewhere. Now, you might think that this 6th phase is the end of it, as Thane's health bar has been completely depleted, but there's actually a 7th phase, and that is when the Soul Stone shows up, where you get to deal with every single effect that you have seen Thane use, and a couple of amped up attacks because they don't relent. They continue right on through. And as long as you've got a feel for it, it's not incredibly difficult, as Thane only gains 15 to 20% of his overall health back, but he teleports around the arena, summons in more of his reality clones, and encases you in amber and other attacks, which you can just see there. Wolverine's health was taken completely down to just 1 or 2% really within the last round of attacks that we were on the unfortunate receiving end of Thane. And Wolverine does go down here, but it's honestly kind of a lost cause to try and take your time away to revive him, as there are so many different effects going on at this stage that you just really don't want to even spend your time with it. Now, unfortunately, Miles has gone down as well, so I've resorted to using Gambit, as he's really my best ranged applicant character at this stage, with the Deadly Deal being usable at a distance. And Thane is really pulling out all the stops within the nature of this fight, so it's certainly one of the more challenging fights in the main story quest, though I believe that there are other fights that give this a run for its money elsewhere, whether it be through the Infinity Rifts or through the some of the content included through the DLC, which we'll be sure to analyze at one point. Now, Wolverine's gone down for the second time in this fight, and we are just about through with Thane, so I'm going to prioritize a few final synergy and extreme attacks here to get through the remainder of it. And just like that, the fight has been finished, and that brings us to the end of all boss fights included in the main story quest. So if you enjoyed this series, feel free to go back through and leave a like. Comment what your favorite boss fight in the game is down below, as I'm curious to know what your thoughts are. And we will be back on Friday with a new series that I think will prove to be quite beneficial for you. But thanks again for watching, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day.